Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. Today we're looking at Grimjack number, I don't know what number it is. It is number 61. And it came out in 1989 from First Publishing. But before we get into that, I'd like to show you some of my own work. This is the newest issue of Random Access that's going out to my patrons this week. You can get these at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin, or you can go to my website, alexanderturbin.com, or you can message me at alexturbin0441 at Yahoo or alexturbin0441 at Instagram. It's full size, full color, 10 pages of my artwork and a couple pages of backup stories, one by Paul Courtjohn and one actually by myself with another different story. And like I said, it's full color. And so thank you for supporting my comics. And let's get back to the review of Grimjack. So Grimjack and I have a little bit of history, not a lot, not as much as I would like. I would like to say that I've read a whole bunch of issues, but I've maybe read 3 or 4. It was one of those titles that it was at the time period when I first got into comics that I kind of knew about it. And I when I first started getting comics, I got them at the newsstand. It wasn't the newsstand. It was the Mr. Paperback, which was a bookstore that I frequented downtown Bangor. And so it was different for me to go to a comic book store, and a comic book store is where you would have to go to get Grimjack and some of the other titles that Tim Truman did and John Ostrander. I don't know if Ostrander wrote Scout, but I'm definitely going to go over some Scout at some point because Tim Truman, for me, is really known as Scout and Grimjack. He also has done a lot of other stuff. I mean, he did a Green Arrow thing for DC, and he did the Prowler. He didn't do the artwork, but I think he did the story for Prowler. And he did a bunch of stuff, but he's mostly known for Grimjack and Scout, and he's definitely an artist that I'm going to look at both in the artist poll that we have every week and just some of his other books because I think he's a really talented artist, but I never really got to know his art on a personal level. I think on a personal level, like you go to the store and the comic book store and you look around, you kind of scan the area and stuff, and things are happening. What titles are, that the mutant X agenda is going on over there. That the English stuff with 2000 AD stuff is going on over there, and the death of Superman is happening over there. And so even if you haven't read any of that stuff, you still know what's going on. You're still pretty cognizant, I guess, of the comic book scene. You know what is going on in the comic book scene, even if you haven't read all of the issues. You know what's going on. At least I did. I don't know if that's the same thing with you guys. Like, did you go to the newsstand when you were younger and pick out the comics that you got every week and never step foot into a comic book store until they really became big and Imagey and all of this stuff? I mean, they used to be these like when I went to Forbidden Planet, it was such a huge deal for me. Like every few 3, 4, 5 months, I would go to New York City with my dad, or New York to see my grandparents rather, and then we would go into the city and he would do his business at the record stores and stuff and buy and sell music and stuff like that. And he would either drop me off at Forbidden Planet or he would just kind of wait in the car or whatever because parking in the city is horrible. But I would peruse the Forbidden Planet, and it was, when I got there the first time, it was like 2 stories of comics and games and action figures and Japanese manga and Japanese anime and Japanese toys, and it's like stepping into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. I remember that very distinctly, the very first time I stepped into a comic book store that wasn't a book, part of a bookstore. And that was probably the most influential comic book store that I've ever gone to. The other ones, there's so many, hole in the wall comic book stores that used to be around where you would just kind of you would open the door and it would jingle, and it would be these creaky old boards that you would walk on, and it would be dusty and kind of grimy, and there'd be comic book boxes strewn around everywhere, and maybe a few posters or whatever. But really, modern day comic book stores, they're quite a bit different than they were back in the day, and I think that's a great thing. I think they're way more welcoming than they were back in the day, and but they were still a thing. And I remember, like I said, going to the comic book store and seeing Grimjack and Scout on the walls, and they were like, $2 or $3, whereas I was spending 65 cents, 75 cents for a comic book at Mr. Paperback. And I was just like, man, this is just sensory overload. But it was a wonderful feeling, and I would pick up some weird things, some different things. I would get the newest issue of whatever I normally got, because it was a month before it got done. It got open on the newsstands, which was really kind of exciting. And but I would also pick up different things. That's when I picked up Mage and some Grendels and stuff like that. And so I would really expand my horizons. I could not get enough Grimjack, or I maybe got one or two Grimjacks, if that. It's too big a story to only read one or two issues. I probably read this back in 1989, and I was just probably lost, and I just never, sought out more issues later on. And it never happened for me that I read a lot of Grimjack. I might go back and try to find some, same with Scout, because I do like Tim Truman's art. So let's get into this. This thing, and maybe this is one of the reasons why I didn't really get into Grimjack. It's this, if I got this back in the day, number 61 from 1989, and it starts out where you're the main character, or the main character is looking at the panels, and he's saying, and everybody is saying, good morning, Mr. Twilly, good morning, Mr. Twilly, are you going to do this, Mr. Twilly, what's up, Mr. Twilly? And so you figure that the character that's facing the panels is Mr. Twilly, so that's kind of unusual. This beginning has it does have an explanation of Grimjack of sorts. He's some sort of character that lives in Sinister. I'm not entirely sure. So anyway, if you guys, any guys out there, big Grimjack fans, I would really like some backstory, or if I miss anything or mispronounce or get anything wrong, I would really appreciate you guys helping out, because I'm just not steeped in the lore of Grimjack. Like I said, I knew what was going on. Everybody did in the comic book field, comic book fandom or whatever. You knew who Grimjack was. You just didn't, if you weren't reading it, then you didn't fully know. So it's kind of talks about how he was killed. He lives in Sinister. He's some sort of bounty hunter or something. He was killed, came back later, 200 years, reborn. Is there some sort of reincarnation that happens to him specifically? Is this like a 2000 AD and Judge Dredd kind of thing, where he lives in the Megalopolis or whatever? Is Sinister Megalopolis only on another planet? Is this another planet? Is it future? I don't know. So they do explain a few things, but just not as much as I really would like. So, like I said, you're facing the panel. Everybody's talking to you. It is a science fiction-y world, so I think it's just a science fiction world, and all of this stuff he's talking about is a science fiction-y thing kind of going on. And you see that later on as one of the characters shows up, and he's not a human, and you're like, what? So this is James Gaunt. Is that his name? John Gaunt. John Gaunt is Grimjack. He's got that's his moniker, or his nickname or whatever. So he's Grimjack, but he's died, he's gone to the future, or he's been reborn in the future, and he's just now regaining his memories of all of the characters that used to be with him and stuff. This is a very specific type of story, and there's a lot of them that are out there. The main one that I can think of is 12 Monkeys. where Bruce Willis's character, excuse me, just kind of goes through the movie and he's just kind of oblivious to a lot of stuff, and I think maybe he lost his memories, whatever. So he's kind of stumbling through the movie without his memories, and that is kind of how this character is. John Gaunt, he's stumbling through this comic book, through the storyline, and he's like grasping at different straws of his memories, and there's like little hints of things going on, and there's, like I said, there's a whole slew of other comics that do it like this. Wolverine, kind of a little bit like that with his memory. I'm trying to think of some other comic books that have been like this. Maybe you guys know of some that could throw in. Anyway, this was created by John Ostrander and Tim Truman, but at some point, probably before the storyline, because this feels like it's starting a new storyline with this whole 200 years in the future and all of this stuff. So I don't know when Tim Sale leaves. Not Tim Sale. Tim Truman. Not Tim Truman leaves, and Flint Henry takes over the art. Gary Fields letterer, Martin Thomas is the colorist, and Laurel Fitch is the editor. So this is, like I said, this is a first comic, and I like how this is the. I said I was going to talk about covers a little bit more. I really love this cover, and this is probably why I got it. Especially the Virgin cover. Virgin covers, I don't know if I like Virgin covers or not. I mean, it's awesome to see the full blown art and stuff, but why they could have the Virgin cover on the front or on the back, and then the original cover with all of the stuff on the front, or something like that. But I don't know how I feel about Virgin covers. I both like them and dislike them at the same time, because I kind of like seeing all of that comic book stuff, the logo and all of that stuff on the cover, plus the what number it is and the price tag. I like seeing that. I like seeing all that. It's like a comic book kind of norm, and when you have this Virgin cover kind of stuff, it just breaks the norm, and I just don't know what to do. So I like this. I like this weird. This really has to do a lot with what's going on in the book with John Gaunt and his eyes, and he doesn't know where he is, and I think this is like his patch, his symbol or something like that. So I really like the cover, and so he's just going through his day. He's part of some sort of corporation. The family that he's part of is like a big corporation or something. So he's one of the heads or something like that. So he's kind of just going through his day, and the secretary is saying hello to him, and he has a therapist, and he's talking to him, and his brother comes in. And John is just kind of feeling woozy. His mind is all messed up, and his memories are all messed up. And his brother shows up, and he's kind of just saying that you have to, if you want to be part of the family, then you have to act like part of the family, and you have to do your job and do some of the stuff. One of the old characters from his past then comes in, and it's Mr. Kropakny busts in. He's the first indication that this is an alien world, and I just don't. I'm not sure where to put this. He is very alien looking, and to be frank, I'm not really that impressed with the alienness of him. I don't know if that's how he looks in all of the Grimjack comics. He is the bartender at Munden's bar, and Grimjack actually realizes that's who he is, and he's calling him out, saying he's not this Krupakny guy. He's the whatever. He's the leader. He's the bartender at Munden's bar, or the owner of Munden's bar, or whatever. But I guess in the previous issue, he had gone to Munden's bar because he was having some sort of mental breakdown and trying to figure out where he actually came from and stuff. So he figures out where Munden's bar was, which I guess he hung out there. That's where he got contracts or something like that. So he goes to Munden's bar, and it's boarded up and stuff. So this Koprakny guy, Grimjack is accusing him of being this Munden guy, or the bartender at Munden's bar, or whatever. And so the brother, or is it the brother? No, it's not the brother. It's somebody else in the corporation barges in, and because Cropney is talking like he's being assaulted and how he's being talked to, like he spends a lot of credits there. And so this guy, I don't know who this is. Mr. Robert, your brother has been, so it's another brother. So it's a different brother. It's two different brothers. One who's kind of not so bad. He's got a beard, and this guy who's kind of a jerk. And he's just saying that he's not going to put up with this foolishness from Grimjack, and that he's got to get his head straightened out. And why doesn't he go see his therapist? So Grimjack, or whatever his name is, John Gaunt, goes to see his therapist. He's walking through the city, and he sees this girl, this woman, and Layla. So apparently that's another character from his past. So what really is hard for me is because I haven't read enough Grimjack to know any of these characters. Like if this was the X-Men, and it was, Wolverine had his memory wiped about the X-Men, but he saw some of these things going on, and he saw Nightcrawler, he saw Storm, I would know who they are. I don't know who these people are, so I have no frame of reference, Donnie. So I don't know, it's weird. So he goes on, he just sees her, she pedals off to wherever she's going. He goes to a friend of his, which is apparently a robot or something, that they went to high school together. And this is all some sort of weird thing in his imagination or something, because they keep having these close-ups, and he's like sweating profusely, and he's just having this hard time. He's just looks all whacked out and everything. And the robot is kind of telling him about his past, and how when he was 14, he had these breakdowns, and that's when he started going to a therapist and all of this stuff, which is kind of interesting, I guess. But there's a whole lot of dialogue going on between them, and again, John Gaunt, he's just kind of flipping out, he's freaking out, and he just doesn't know what to do. And then he's on the street, and somebody is trying to run him down with some sort of truck. So he smashes into what was a guard post or something. John Gaunt jumps out of the way and just dodges the truck, running from it. And this is really some nice action going on. I really enjoyed this part of it. It broke up the monotony kind of this whole memory relapse kind of thing. So he does hit him, I guess. No, he almost hits him. He jumps on the hood, and he smashes into a wall or whatever. And so the guy jumps out and, I guess he keeps chasing him in the truck. The truck is going along, and John Gaunt, aka Grimjack, just jumps out of the way in the nick of time, and his truck smashes into the wall, and the guy gets out, and he's got a paper bag over his head, and he's somebody that just wants to kill him. So he starts shooting his gun at him, and but before long, he is shot in the head by the character that was there before. What was her name? Layla. Layla. Yeah. Layla. Is that Layla? I think it is, because she says, remember. Is that the same character? I don't know if that's the same character or not. I think it is. So anyway, he goes to his therapist trying to get some drugs to make some sort of sense out of what's going on in his life and try to figure out what's going on. And the therapist says, I'll get you some drugs or something. I just have something to check on, and I'll be right back. So he's looking at this cabinet where the drugs are, trying to get them himself. He smashes through it, and he finds his Grimjack outfit, and he realizes that something weird's going on, and that he is not really whoever everybody says he is. He's Grimjack, and he's had this whole previous life. And he shows it to the therapist, and shoving it in his face. He's like, I haven't been crazy. This is all my stuff, and this is my life, and you guys have been pretty much gaslighting me and everything. And so the therapist says, calm down. You were going to destroy that stuff yourself. It was part of the therapy. It's part of getting better. And if you are actually Grimjack, then who is this? And there's another Grimjack that shows up. There's another short story at the end, but we won't be going into that because we just are talking about the main storyline. I do wish that this was Tim Truman art, but it's not, and I do enjoy it. a little bit afraid that it looks kind of like mine, because I'm not really wholly enthralled by it. But let's go back to the story and the writing. The writing, John Ostrander, everything is really good. The story is told. He's accomplishing his main goal, which is to confuse the reader and to bring them slowly through the realization of who John Gaunt is, and that he is in fact Grimjack. And as you know, he adds certain things to the storyline, and it's like a puzzle that he's piecing together to tell you that yes, this is Grimjack, and that's just how the new storyline is going along. So I really enjoy the writing, story wise, plot wise. I don't really enjoy those kind of things. I did love 12 Monkeys mostly because Brad Pitt was so fantastic in it. But story-wise, I really wasn't a big fan of 12 Monkeys. And that's Terry Gilliam, right? Isn't 12 Monkeys Terry Gilliam? I think it is. And I love Terry Gilliam. Yes, is it 12 Monkeys Terry Gilliam? I don't know. I have to check that out. Anyway, so I did enjoy the story. I did enjoy the dialogue. It goes along really nicely. Everybody has a really nice way about them. They have their own particular voices, and they don't all sound the same, and it flows very well, and it's enjoyable to read, and all of that cool fun stuff that make dialogue something enjoyable in comic books. The art, I do enjoy the art. The coloring, I don't know. I'm afraid that it's watercolor, and it's kind of the watercolor that I'm doing now, and I don't like it, and I'm wondering if this is the road that I'm headed on with my watercolor. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at this more, and see if I enjoy the watercoloring. I think some of it is the printing. I think that the shading and the shadows and stuff, and the blending of the watercolors, actually you kind of lose it a little bit. It looks a little bit like heavy metal, some of the coloring, some of the European coloring, and if it's not printed perfectly, then you lose so much of the blending in the color, and so it's just not as good as it could be. But this scene here, and also just some of the stuff is really good, and I really like it. I like his close-ups, but some of his facial structures reminds me of my own, and I don't love it. So maybe I'm gonna have to change some of that a little bit, if it's too much like this and not enough what I like. I don't really like this panel here, but I do like this one. So I don't know. Some of the stuff I really like, but this whole fight sequence, chase sequence, I really like. I really like the panel layout, and the artist is definitely competent. I'm not saying anything really badly about him. Just it's not really my thing. I'm not really hugely into him. I really wish this was Tim Truman, and I'm definitely going to look more at his stuff. So I did enjoy it, his art, but I don't love it. So what I'm going to give Grimjack number 61 for a score is, I'm going to give it a 7 is my baseline. If I would get more of them, if I saw them in the dollar bin, and I would get more Grimjacks. So I'm going to say, starting at 7, I'm going to give this an 8. I'm going to give an 8 because the character is compelling. The story is compelling, even though I don't love it. I don't love that kind of thing, that kind of story. It's kind of like the Groundhog Day in every sci-fi show, movie, or anything. There's always a Groundhog Day storyline, and I just don't like them. I don't enjoy them. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's Star Trek or X-Files or whatever. I just don't enjoy the Groundhog Day trope. And so this kind of thing, I'm just not a big fan of, even though I did enjoy the way it was put together and the writing and everything like that. So I'm going to give it an 8. I'm going to give it an 8. I could go lower, but Grimjack, I want to get more. So there you go. If you have read Grimjack, any amount of Grimjack, let me know. If you like the storylines, if you stopped reading it, how many issues. If this is at 61 issues, this is fantastic for an indie comic at the time. 1989, that's a fantastic run for a comic book of the indie persuasion. Let me know. Did you start reading it? Stop reading it? I couldn't get it. That was my biggest problem, was I couldn't get it. Regularly at my local comic book store. When the local comic book store did show up, I just couldn't get it. And when I did go to the one in New York or wherever, I had eyes on other things. So let me know what you thought of this and other Grimjacks. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, and all that cool, fun stuff. This is what I do. I look over indie comics from the 70s, 80s, 90s, usually black and white, but also the colors. I'm going to look at all of the Grendels and Mages and all that cool stuff. And like all of the First and Eclipse books and everything I can find that is unusual and different. So yeah, that's what I do. And but more than all of those things, the subscribing and all that stuff, I really love your comments, because I love talking about comic books with you guys. It's one of my favorite things to do. And it's just what I really enjoy. So it's a Monday. We've got a full week ahead of us with a live show with Joe, and we're going to forego the poll this week, and we're going to talk about the passing of Peter David, who was one of the iconic writers of my youth, and we're going to look at some of the artwork that we do and stuff like that. So check that out, and then we'll have some more reviews after that. And thanks for watching, and always keep on creating.